Mr. Sharael, Taha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I welcome the amendments to the bill. Key amendments, such as tax gains from the sale of foreign assets that are received in Singapore by businesses without economic substance in Singapore, and mandating the submission of income information by intermediaries by self-employed persons, better improve tax administration and policy objectives. The philanthropy tax incentive scheme for family offices strengthens Singapore's position as a regional philanthropy hub and encourages family offices to anchor their operations in Singapore. And the Enterprise Innovation Scheme enhances the already available tax incentives and aims to encourage more businesses to engage in R&D, innovation, and capability development. Mr. Speaker, sir, in DPM Wong's budget speech in February this year, he shared that amidst a very challenging external backdrop, our economy grew 3.6% in 2022, and our unemployment rate at 2.8% in December last year was already well below pre-pandemic levels. It was described that 2022 was a year of brutal inflation worldwide, where global inflation was around 9% and inflation reached historic levels in many advanced economies, such as US and Germany. To battle this inflation, MAS had tightened our monetary policy 5 times since October 2021. While this has eased the pressure on headline inflation, inflation rates are still higher than what Singaporeans are used to. Hence, up to February this year, we have rolled out 3 packages to address cost of living concerns, totaling more than 3.5 billion. And just last week, DPM Wong announced another 1.1 billion cost of living support package to help Singaporeans cope with higher inflation and cost of living challenges. Amidst higher prices, including higher conservancy prices, higher water prices, and higher transport prices, the additional 1.1 billion cost of living support package for household aims to offset these price increases with the additional SNCC rebate, UCF rebate, and public transport vouchers. In addition to that, all Singaporeans households receive $200 of CDC vouchers, and 2.5 million eligible adult Singaporeans will receive up to $200 cash payment. We see both the headline and the core inflation rates slowing down for the past few months, with core inflation down 3.8% year-on-year in July, compared to 4.2% in June. And while cost of living packages are rolled out to assist Singaporeans with inflation, businesses are facing immense challenges too. In addition to inflation and rising costs, businesses in Singapore continue to have to contend with rising costs of production, tight labor market, challenges of attracting talent, managing workers' expectation in the new norm, increasing global competition, M&As, reshoring, nearshoring, and governments around the world offering more grants, schemes, and support to continue to attract investments into their country and giving us a run for our money. While we all want to pay our workforce better, this is only sustainable if it is done with a corresponding increase in productivity and through engaging in high value-added work and work in industries that are higher valued to the world. Improving productivity, building capability, anchoring quality investments, nurturing and sustaining innovation is our lifeline to remain relevant in the global market. Thankfully, we are not short of tools to encourage companies to deliver what we need. We have the National Productivity Grant with the additional $4 billion top-up mentioned by DPM Wong. We are investing $24 billion from 2021 to 2025 to catalyze research innovation. We have specific industry transformation maps for 23 industries and many other schemes and policies that are aimed to drive productivity and nurture innovation. This bill proposes to enhance and have new tax deductions on qualifying expenditure through the new Enterprise Innovation Scheme to further nurture and sustain innovation. Today, businesses already enjoy tax deductions of up to 250% of qualifying expenditure on qualifying R&D activities, registration of intellectual property, acquisition and licensing of intellectual property rights, and training expenditure. The EIS will enhance the tax deduction of up to 400% of qualifying expenditure on 5 core activities: qualifying R&D activities, registration of IPs, acquisition and licensing of IP rights, innovation projects carried out by polytechnics, ITs, and qualified partners, and training via courses approved by SkillsFuture. While I'm fully supportive of its intent, my clarification will focus more on the effectiveness of this tool, and if we need to tweak it to meet the policy intent of encouraging businesses to engage in R&D, innovation, and capability development activities. To do so, my clarifications are broadly summarized to the following. Firstly, how effective has tax incentive been in developing new capability and R&D? Secondly, how do we ensure investments into skills give rise to real productivity or capability development in Singapore? Thirdly, can we expand the list of qualified partners for support on innovation projects? Firstly, given the tax deduction on qualifying R&D expenditure, the registration of IPs, the acquisition of IP rights, and training expenditure has been ongoing, and what is currently proposed is an enhancement to it. What is the total amount of tax deduction that has been claimed from these criteria for the past 5 years? And based on this, granted that it is a lot harder to quantify the benefits, does the ministry have an estimate of how this has encouraged and enabled more innovation or generated more IPs in Singapore? It will be useful to have an idea if this is an effective lever to drive innovation in Singapore. Secondly, on training expenditure, the tax deduction is applicable to, quote, qualifying training expenditure incurred on courses that are eligible for SkillsFuture funding and aligned to the skills framework, unquote. Clicking on the link of eligible courses found on the go.gov.sg EIS training leads us to 15,523 course records, listing anything from artificial intelligence and machine learning to wine appreciation and 3D jelly art. I believe that qualifying training expenditure on the course eligible for EIS tax deduction is too broad, given that the policy objective is for EIS to encourage businesses to engage in R&D, innovation, and develop deeper capability. To be fair, there are good and relevant courses in the SkillsFuture list, such as intellectual property and business model planning, and intellectual property innovations in IoT. Can the ministry consider narrowing down the number of courses so that businesses can sharpen their thinking when it comes to driving R&D, innovation, and developing capability in their organization? Another consideration when assessing qualifying training expenditure in relation to delivering intended policy objectives is the assumption that skills learned in training are applied and delivers a real value to the business. Can I also suggest that to qualify for tax deduction from the training expenditure, a business has to show that the trainee has delivered value to the organization? For example, in the Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification, where although the course fees is $9,000, the trainee must show that he's able to apply his skills and deliver cost savings to his organization before he receives the certification. Similarly, should we get the applying companies to briefly describe how their staff are applying the skill set to drive innovation and productivity in their organization? While I understand and appreciate that asking for proof of applying the learned skill set may be challenging to administer, the smaller number of applications from a precise list of courses and the use of possibly AI and machine learning to assess the submissions could help in the administrative process. This will then ensure that businesses intending to claim this tax deduction will think through it more thoroughly and on how the trainees can immediately put the newly acquired skill set to further develop the R&D and the capability in the organization. I've mentioned about narrowing the number of eligible courses to focus more on productivity and innovation. I've also touched on encouraging businesses to then apply the newly acquired skill set. The next important element is then who is eligible for the training expenditure tax deduction in the company. While I appreciate it covers individuals deployed under central hiring arrangements or even secondment arrangements, can the ministry consider having a minimum amount of years that the employee has to serve in the company before his training expenditure can be considered for tax deduction? This is especially important because since we now have the option to convert qualifying training expenditure into cash, this will make it harder for those who intend to abuse the system and send temporary workers for training indiscriminately and collecting the training expenditure in cash. And on my last clarification, Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill proposes that innovation projects carried out with polytechnics, ITEs, and qualified partners may be eligible for tax deductions. Currently, the list of partners include all polytechnics, ITEs, and partner institutions such as Aquaculture Innovation Center, Center Innovation of Complementary Health Products, and Precision Engineering Center of Innovations from SIMTech. Is there a reason why the local universities and its associated centers are not included as partner institutions? Will the ministry review the list of partner institutions periodically? Mr. Speaker, in Malay, please. Perniagaan kini sedang menghadapi cabaran yang semakin meningkat daripada kenaikan kos, pasaran buruh yang lebih kompetitif, cabaran untuk menarik bakat dan persaingan global yang semakin meningkat. Walaupun perniagaan bercita untuk membayar pekerjanya dengan lebih baik, ini hanya mampan jika ia dilakukan dengan peningkatan produktiviti yang sepadan dan melalui penglibatan dalam kerja nilai tambah yang lebih tinggi dan di dalam industri yang bernilai lebih tinggi kepada dunia. Meningkatkan produktiviti, membina keupayaan, menambat pelaburan berkualiti, memupuk dan mengekalkan inovasi adalah talian hayat kami untuk kekal relevan dalam pasaran global. Rang undang-undang ini bercadang untuk mempertingkatkan dan mempunyai potongan cukai baru ke atas perbelanjaan yang layak melalui skim inovasi perusahaan untuk terus memupuk dan mengekalkan inovasi di Singapura. Walaupun saya menyokong hasratnya, soalan saya lebih menumpukan pada keberkesanan rang undang-undang ini untuk memenuhi niat dasar menggalakkan perniagaan untuk melibat dalam aktiviti R&D, inovasi dan pembangunan keupayaan. Penjelasan yang saya mencari boleh diringkaskan kepada yang pertama, sejauh manakah insentif cukai telah berkesan dalam membangunkan keupayaan dan R&D baru. Yang kedua, bagaimana kita memastikan pelaburan dalam kemahiran menimbulkan produktiviti atau pembangunan keupayaan yang efektif. Dan yang ketiga, bolehkah kita mengembangkan senarai institusi yang layak untuk menerima sokongan? Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, I believe the Income Tax Amendment Bill has changes that helps align it better with policy objectives while improving tax administration. The introduction of the EIS to encourage more businesses to engage in R&D, innovation, and capability development is very much welcome. Notwithstanding the clarifications I've mentioned earlier, I support the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.